Hey guys, welcome back to Mr. News Art class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces. This video continues our theme where we're talking about different reasons why different people make art and how your purpose, your reason for making art, can change the way your art turns out. In last week's video, we talked about Impressionism, where the whole purpose was to get a quick idea of highlights, shadows, and colors. Today, we're talking about Expressionism, which is all about how you feel and expressing that in your artwork. So as we talked about in last week's video about Impressionism, the Impressionist artists really broke open the door where artists thought that everything they made had to be realistic before that, and then after the Impressionists broke open that door, it was okay for artists to make things in different ways that were not realistic. And after that door was opened, you started to see lots of different styles. Today we're talking about Expressionism, which is different from Impressionism, because Impressionism was all about seeing light and shadow and color, whereas Expressionism is all about taking what's inside and expressing it, taking your feelings, your emotions, and sharing that, communicating that through your artwork. And you can see this expression in artworks like The Old Guitarist by Pablo Picasso, made during his blue period, feeling very sad and lonely. And artworks like The Scream by Edvard Munch, showing anxiety and frustration and basically like how a lot of people feel about 2020. Probably the best known Expressionist artist was Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh lived a very sad and strange life, but painting brought him joy. And his most famous artwork, The Starry Night, is a great blending of the joy and the sadness and how they worked together in his life. And The Starry Night is a perfect way of showing how he used his artwork not just to express his feelings, but to deal with the inner turmoil that his emotions were causing him. He painted this during a time when he was struggling with depression and anxiety and fear and sadness and lots of terrible emotions. But just the act of painting helped to calm him and bring him some peace and some joy into an otherwise kind of messed up life.
Pause the video and take a moment to talk to somebody about what you see in this painting. If you paused your video and talked to a friend, you probably noticed a few special things about this painting. First, you probably noticed that the stars in the sky are really big and bright. They're not dots like you would expect to see. Second, you probably noticed that you can see the wind in this picture, unlike in real life. Third, you probably noticed that the painting is mostly blues, even the sky, which you would expect to be a black nighttime sky. You probably also noticed that there is a giant tree in the foreground and a small village just beneath the hills. Today I'm going to show you how to create your very own copy of The Starry Night. Your copy won't be perfect, but it will have the main ideas that Vincent van Gogh was trying to put into his original painting. We're going to begin our picture by putting our hand on the bottom left side of the page and sort of kind of tracing it to make the tree in the foreground. Don't try to trace the space between your fingers. Make sure you make the tree nice and tall and go up over top of your fingers. Next, we're going to use a wavy line to create some hills in the background. The trick for overlapping behind the tree is that you draw a wavy line, and when you bump into a tree, you jump over the tree, bumping and jumping. Next, we want to use any bright color, like yellow here, to create some spirals for the wind in the sky. To make our spirally wind, we start with almost a circle, but not quite closed. Then we want to pick one end of that open circle and carry on going inside the circle until we reach the middle. We finish the spiral of wind by carrying the outside end of the spiral off to the edge of the page with a big swooshy line. Then we can follow up with one or two more swirls, but not too many. We want to leave some space for the stars and the moon. Don't forget to bump and jump for overlapping if any of your swirls of wind go behind your tree. To draw the moon, we will start with the letter C and then make another C wrapping around it from the top to the bottom. And we'll go ahead and color it in too. We'll begin making the stars with just simple dots, and we don't want millions of them like we see in the night sky. We just want a few of them spread out so that we have space to make them a little bigger later. Now we're going to add some thickness to each of the stars and the moon by adding little lines that wrap around and make circles around each star and the moon. We want to do several layers of this around each individual star and around the moon. We're also going to make the swirls of wind bigger and brighter by adding more lines just like we did around the stars and the moon. Next, we want to begin filling the sky with blue, but we don't want to color it in, not the way we normally do. Instead, we want to use little tiny lines and a whole lot of them. We want them to be very, very close together. Don't spread them out too much. We want little bits of white space in between our blue lines, and we're going to fill those in later with some watercolor paint. Fill the entire sky like this, above the blue hills, around your stars, around your swirls of wind, and around the moon. But do not put the sky blue color below the hills. Now we're going to add even more color to the sky with a little bit of purple. We don't need as much purple as there is blue, but adding a little bit of purple helps to make the sky more vivid and colorful. Adding the purple also shrinks the spaces between the blue marks, so there's less white. And if you'd like to darken things up a bit, you can add a little bit of black to the sky too. I think that's enough for the sky, so now we'll move along to the tree. In the tree, we want to use black and brown, maybe a little bit of red too. And we want to keep with the idea of just using little lines to fill it in instead of coloring it completely the way we would normally color. But this time we're going to make the lines a little bit longer and wavy. And that just helps to make it look like the tree is blowing in the wind. When you're done with the tree, move on to the village, which will be down below the hills on the right side of the page. And there's really no wrong way to make that village, just a bunch of little houses. And those houses can be as simple as a square with a triangle on top, or you can add chimneys, doors, windows, whatever. But don't color the houses in. Just like we've been doing for everything else on the picture, use little lines to fill it with color. When you're finished making the village, next, add some green grass. The grass is going to be short, green, vertical lines that fill the rest of the empty white space below the hills. And make sure you don't forget to put grass to the left of the tree. This last little corner needs to be filled with green grass too. And this last trick may seem a little bit ridiculous right now, but I promise that in the end you'll see why it's important. We're going to use a white crayon on our white paper. You won't be able to see it while you're drawing, but you will be able to see it when we're done making this picture. We want to add little white lines around our stars, our moon, and our swirls of wind just to make them a lot brighter. Even though it doesn't look like it's making it brighter, it is, because we're going to be washing over this with a watercolor wash, and the white lines that you make now will resist the watercolor paint and stay white when the picture is finished. And the final step for this picture is to complete the watercolor wash all the way across the page to every corner. Some people like to make the watercolor wash completely blue across the entire page, while other people prefer to do blue in the sky and black on the land and the tree. The main purpose of this watercolor wash is to fill all of the little white spaces that we left between our lines that we used when we were drawing our picture and filling it with color. When you're finished painting the watercolor wash, allow the painting to dry, and that's all there is to it. You've got your very own self-made Starry Night painting.
That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed talking about Vincent van Gogh and how he used his artwork to express his emotions. So far, this series has discussed a lot of different styles of art through the ages and how our global idea of what art is has changed over the centuries. Next week, we're going to talk about how modern art has blossomed into lots of different people making art for lots of different reasons. I can't wait to see you then.